like 20 years ago? Because some critics have said, these guys are now relying on the iPad. We have pictures of them with the backpacks. So this just isolated case of them backpacks playing like a name or their father. Do you think that's how
Desmond, thank you. If you look at the third generation army and what I described we have to do, I would say that without this generation of soldiers, we'll never be able to do it. Our generation of soldiers today are more confident, they are smarter, they learn faster, they are more adaptive. They are just the right type of soldiers we need for this army. And I think that they have all the attributes necessary for us to make them third generation soldiers. So in some ways I say we are very fortunate. Because without this generation of soldiers, I don't think we'll be able to transform ourselves into third generation. But we must also recognize that our soldiers are a product of our society. And therefore, we have to recognize that we need to train, to develop the soldiers to the levels that's required. And we do this, as I mentioned, to very systematic training and engagement. My own sense of it is that I'm very happy with the soldiers we have, both NSF and NSmen. And I feel that they do come through and they are able to acquire all the skill sets, all the competencies and the leadership qualities necessary for them to be a part of the third generation army. On the point about the backpack, I'll say that of course all of us in uniform and of course all Singaporeans, I'm sure recognize that soldier does not represent the whole army. And I'm glad to hear the general response, both from NSF, NSmen, and also from Singaporeans. There's a certain expectation of the army. There's certain expectation that in our army we expect our soldiers to behave a certain way, we expect our soldiers to be tough. And I think that was one of the things that came out in the public response. And from the army's point of view, that's heartened, because it could have been the converse, that this is expected. So my own perspective on this is that, yes, this sort of thing happens, we can't avoid it, but when it happens, it's heartening to know that the right response comes out from our soldiers, from our NS men, and also from the public. And for the army, what it means is that we just have to work harder, to train our soldiers, to make sure that they understand what's expected of them, and make sure that they live up to the expectation.
Next question.
Actually, Sean from Research TV, we actually want to find out a bit more about the man behind the uniform. So just tell us a bit more about yourself, your family, your children, and why you decided to join the army in the first place.
That question goes back a long way. Recently I did a sort of a short interview for the 60th year of the public PSC, which they launched online yesterday. For me, joining the army, the SF was quite natural. I'm someone who enjoys outdoor life. I was in school, I was in track and field, in cross country, I played hockey, and I was in national service, the National Cadet Corps, NCCC, for many, many years. So this is something very natural. I just simply like going outdoors, I like working with people, and I like leading people. So when the SAF, when I was doing my A-levels, SAF offered me a SAF scholarship. I thought there was alignment in terms of what I wanted to do academically, become an engineer, and professionally become a leader in the army. So it was quite natural for me to join the SAF. And of course, it was also a great opportunity to study overseas, which would not have been possible for me given my circumstance at that point of time. And so it was something I took up because of that. But I must say my career in the army has been quite remarkable. I've enjoyed every stage of my career. I've been given many challenges, many opportunities to contribute, to learn, and I've enjoyed it, and I'm glad that I continue to be in service in uniform. It's one of the best things I could do for myself.
But after your appointment as Chief of Army Board President, of course, you were the first kind of retired soldier to be recalled back to active duty and become Chief of Army and lead your army. So I'm just wondering your sentiments of being that, NS men came back, recalled back to duty and become regular again.
As some people have said, you never leave the army. If you serve in the army for 20 years, I can assure you, you become a soldier through and through. When I left active service, my last appointment was Chief of Staff of the Joint Staff. and then I was Deputy Secretary Technology in the Ministry of Defence. So I continue to be in the ministry, and one of my roles as Deputy Secretary of Technology is look at capability development. And this is something which I've done in many of my other tours in the Army and the SAF. So even as I was Deputy Secretary, I actually worked very closely with the Army, looking at all the platforms they're acquiring and how we're going to build the capability, training systems and so on. So coming back to the Army from that point of view wasn't too difficult. There was no break in terms of my engagement with the Army. But of course I was delighted, to be asked to come back, to be back in uniform again, to do what I really like to do. And of course to be Chief of Army is a great honour, it's a great privilege. And I think most of all for me, there is an opportunity to complete one of the contributions I've made in my earlier part of my career in the Army. I used to be the Assistant Chief of General Staff for Plans, and also the head of Joint Plans Department in the Joint Staff in the SAF. And I will work very closely on the 3G Army, 3G SAF transformation, and I was fortunate enough to have a hand in designing that transformation, understanding why we need to transform and how we need to transform. So coming back now as a chief and being able to complete that transformation is a real privilege. And I think being able to see some of these ideas, some of these capabilities come to fruition, I would say personally for me at the personal level is a real great satisfaction. But from a professional point of view, I think this contribution to the Army is something very significant. It brings our Army to a different level, and I'm really glad to be able to be a part of that team.
But don't you think that, how do you then debunk the talk or expectation that maybe there are just not enough younger generals to take over the Army? You need an old hand as you to PM, not your just need a more experienced hand to kind of guide them through.
Well, first of all, the Army, the MINDEF, SAF plays a lot of attention on leadership. I've talked about leadership at soldier level, but for us, leadership in war fighting is everything. And so we have a process of developing leaders. And I think if you look at our success, we had 2 of the Army's senior generals leaving the Army to serve higher office. So it really demonstrates actually the quality and capability of our people. There were other, officers who could also have been Chief of Army, and I think I'm fortunate that MINDEF decided that I should be the one to lead at this point of time. And really I think we have a lot of very good leaders in the Army at all levels, and this is one thing that has helped the Army to continue development.
How do you think your civilian role for maybe 2 years between 2009 and this year, how do you think it might help in leading this new generation of digital natives and also just in your civilian role?
Okay. When I was Deputy Secretary of Technology, I did many things, of course, platform technology, but one of the areas I was also supervising was the area of information technology, dealing with this whole business of what does information technology, how is it evolving, how will it impact war fighting. And so we spent quite a lot of time. I visited many companies trying to understand how these technologies can be used for business, how they're being used for business, and how they can be used for war fighting and so on. So it gave me, that tour of duty as Deputy Secretary of Technology gave me an opportunity to see how the information technologies were evolving and how they were being used. And therefore, coming back and now looking at the 3G Army transformation again, and as you pointed out, recognizing that we now have a generation of soldiers who are very comfortable with social media, very comfortable with working independently through the information technology, really, I guess, allows me as an Army Chief to say that we need to push the boundaries in terms of the way we train our people and also in the way we engage our people using some of these new technologies.
Can you elaborate a little bit more about how you intend to push the boundaries with this new generation of IT-savvy soldiers?
I'll just highlight 2 parts. One is the 3G Army transformation, and then talk a little bit about engagement. On the 3G Army transformation, as I described it, the 3G Army, if you look at it, beyond the platform and system, is really a network. And that network operates actually not on the basis of voice as we had, as many of us may know it traditionally. Traditionally armies operate on radio. We talk to each other through either the radio or through telephones. In the 3G army, you actually don't talk to each other through the voice. Messages are sent, whether it's SMSs or information being sent throughout the system digitally. And this is something that our soldiers are very comfortable with. I'll give you an example of chat. It would have taken us quite some task, some time to train, say, soldiers, say, 2 generations away, to learn how to chat, be comfortable, how to operate the chat. For this generation of soldiers, it's very natural. So if they are, for example, looking at information coming in from different streams, each individual looking at different streams, they can easily chat with each other. And so one of the features that we have introduced in some of our system is a chat feature that allows people to work together without actually talking to each other, sitting in a conference room, but just simply sending messages and sharing information and trying to develop the picture. So from the 3G army point of view, this generation of soldiers, as mentioned, you call them digital natives, they are the right generation. There are many systems and tools we are going to embed into the 3rd generation army systems, which will allow them to use, you can say, their natural skills. The second area is engagement. As I mentioned, for the army, engagement commitment is primary. Let me share with you one thing that we have done, and you may have in your visit to either OCS or BMT heard about it. We ask our soldiers to reflect every week, our recruits to reflect. When I first heard about it many years ago, I thought this is going to be challenging. To get the soldiers every week, on Friday, to write down their reflections of what they've gone through and what does it mean. But we are surprised, or I'm surprised. My commanders are not surprised because I guess they are more used to it. At what we have been able to achieve. Today, our soldiers reflect. They share, in their reflection, which they, of course, type in digitally on the laptops. They share what they go through, what it means, and how it affects them. And I'll just share with you one example of a reflection that was shared to me about a soldier who had been punished. So typically in the army, one person makes a mistake in the platoon, everybody gets punished. Because for us, teamwork is everything. One person makes a mistake, whole platoon dies, everybody gets punished, to understand that the consequence of a single person's mistake is the lives of every soldier, right? So he punished a soldier. So this soldier writes in his reflection, first paragraph, I'm being punished, this other person makes a mistake and I'm being punished, this is very unfair, right? Second paragraph, he continues to lament, I still don't understand why I'm being punished. And somewhere at the end of the second paragraph, in the third paragraph, there is a sudden switch. He then suddenly concludes that this is necessary. For military organization, discipline is important, and we do not punish our soldiers in this way, we all will never learn, and therefore this is correct. This is something I've never seen. But it shows to me that this generation of soldiers, they think differently, they operate differently. And if we use the right methods, means to engage them at a level that they are comfortable, we're able to get our message across. So this is just one example of how we are using technology that they are comfortable with to do engagement. We need to do more, we recognize that, and we'll continue to do more.